Today I'm going to be talking about something that's very close to my heart. Will I be biased? Absolutely. But will I be spitting hella facts? Absolutely. By now most of you have seen the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. The movie that single-handedly swept up a good chunk of the Oscars. It's got a huge amount of praise and, well, obviously for good reason. I cried my fucking eyes out watching that film. The visual effects, made by a team probably 1/4 the size of a visual effects team for Marvel movies. They're responsible for mind-blowing effects that look miles better than current Marvel effects.
Bro, I'm really about to get your pickle chin that boy.
The multiverse aspect was better handled in 2 hours 19 minutes than it was across like 4 3-hour Marvel films. All I'm saying is, Marvel, please do better. Everything Everywhere also has great actors. I also want to mention that the film also has a great f***ing soundtrack. Everything about this film is fantastic, and Stephanie Sue was totally robbed of an Oscar. But we will not go into that. It'll just make me mad. This is the work of the Daniels. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. Two best buds who have made so many movies together. One in particular about a ball who gets around.
Never f***ed my wife!
But they also made my most favorite film of all time. I'm talking about Swiss Army Man. Or if you haven't watched it, the gay necrophilic fart fest. I mean, that's not very far from the truth. Just a little bit of backstory. In the year 2016, Sundance announced their huge lineup of films that made the festival cut, and one in particular drew probably the most attention from the get-go. The film that I'm talking about today. A synopsis that either sold or turned away audiences that read about a man who was lost at sea, who finds a flatulent dead body that is used as a fart-powered jet ski to find civilization. Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano are the protagonists, hence why it became one of the most anticipated films at the 2016 Sundance Film Festival. Of course, when the film's premiere rolled around, it caused division. An estimated 50 people walked out of the premiere in the first 15 minutes of the film, which honestly I think is quite dumb since you couldn't possibly make a sound review of it without seeing at least half of it, but whatever. Then you had other people who rated it so highly. Upon the trailer's release to the wide web, it got a lot of people talking. Half of it was, are they taking the piss? And half of it was, I'm literally feeling every emotion possible. I, of course, was the latter. And then upon the worldwide release, again, lots of mixed reviews. For me, it was a very religious experience personally. Fun fact, I picked this movie to watch at the cinema on my very first date, like ever in my life. Want to know how that went? Find out at the end of this video. Anyways, I'm gonna stray away from the review part of things and just get straight into the movie because I just want to say that this movie isn't getting nearly enough love and understanding as I'd hoped. So the plot goes as followed. Just a quick rundown. We follow Hank, a hopeless man lost at sea, washed up on a small island. Like, very, very small. Looks like he's been lost for weeks, looking at the growth of his facial hair. The film opens up on him preparing to hang himself with some rope. Trust me, the funny part is coming. And as he's about to say, goodbye cruel world, a body washes up on the shore. Hank has a little struggle with the rope and almost ending it all anyway, but the rope luckily snaps so he can go and investigate what he thinks is a live person. And to his disappointment, he's dead. And by God, he be tootin'. But Hank comes to the realization that this corpse can help him get off his little island. Enter the fart-powered jet ski. They make it to land somewhere on the edge of the US. I actually think it was Canada, but correct me if I'm wrong. And Hank decides to carry this body around with him since he needs a friend. Not much later, when they find respite in a cave, the body starts to speak, which startles Hank just a little bit. The body calls himself Manny, and he actually can't talk very well at first, and he can't even move. He also has no recollection of who he was before he died, or how he died. In fact, he has no recollection of what life actually is.
Okay, what is life?
So Hank gives him a little crash course on what life is. Poop and all. Hank actually teaches Manny throughout the whole film, which makes him feel like life is meaningful after all. Aww. But we aren't there yet. Manny ends up seeing Hank's phone lock screen, which has a picture of a beautiful Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Sarah, in this film. And Hank is so embarrassed about it that he insinuates that it's Manny's phone that he found on him. And Manny is led to believe that Sarah is the love of his life and is now determined to get back to her. There's only one problem. He got no riz. So it's Hank's job to bestow some riz onto Manny. So after avoiding a grizzly bear, they use the trash around them to recreate scenes from Hank's life, unbeknownst to Manny, of course. And Hank dresses up as Sarah to help Manny find his mojo and his memories. This takes up most of the film. Manny and Hank start to fall for each other, kinda gay, but like in a bro way, like an I fucking love you bro kinda way. They do kiss, no homo though. Anyway, Hank finds his phone is now getting service, and he decides to tell Manny the truth about Sarah. So Sarah is actually a girl Hank sees on the bus every day, but has never spoken to. He stalks her Instagram on a daily, creepy, and has even stooped to a new low by taking a photo of her and keeping it as the lock screen picture. That's a little bit more creepy. Manny sees her Instagram, which shows that Sarah is actually married and has a kid and an overall happy life, something that Hank doesn't have at all. Upon seeing this, Manny wants to go back to being dead. They are attacked by a bear again, but it does quite a lot of damage to Hank. Manny starts to move on his own after this heartbreak and takes it upon himself to carry a gravely injured Hank back to civilization, into Sarah's backyard of all places. Manny is now all rizzed up and ready to talk to Sarah. But Hank intervenes and starts fighting with him on the grass in front of Sarah's daughter, Chrissy. She finds them weird. Manny starts to show her his powers, which scares her, rightfully so, and attracts Sarah to the yard where she finds Hank and Manny. Although Manny has gone back to a dead state out of embarrassment and will not wake up. Sarah gets Hank some much needed help. At this point, Manny and Hank actually get mixed up, as Hank, out of embarrassment, lets authorities identify the body as Hank, and Hank is now Manny. Are you still with me? This is pretty awkward considering his hard-ass dad shows up thinking his son is in the body bag. News reporters come in and interview Hank, who is using the name Manny. The sole survivor, Hank reconsiders his motives at this point and corrects the identity of the body as Manny, and going on to say that he saved Hank's life out there. And then he goes and takes Manny back into the woods and running away from everyone who actually, rightfully so, chase him down. Then Chrissy follows them, which causes Sarah and her husband to follow too. So now the police, the reporters, Sarah's family, and Hank's dad are all in pursuit. They all find the trash recreations of Sarah's Instagram stories, and she recognizes all of them. And she is not having it, bruv. They all find Hank at the shore hugging Manny and asking him to wake up, and tries to prove to everyone that he's real, but he won't budge. Authorities are about to take him away. Hank's dad is just about cringing out of existence until Hank lets out a disrespectful fart.
It was me.
He actually admits to the fart with pride after keeping it to himself throughout the whole film. And his life. I fucking love a good metaphor. Manny then starts to fart up a storm and then farts off to sea, smiling at everyone. Hank's dad smiles and laughs. Cute. The end. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character delivers the line that we were all thinking of.
What the fuck?
Also, just a fun rundown of why the film is called Swiss Army Man. It's because the corpse, Manny, is literally the multi-purpose tool guy with magical abilities to help with their survival. He is a jet ski, water container, fire starter, wood chopper, a force multiplier, a compass. Don't ask me how, just watch the film and see for yourself. He is a helping hand in every way, and also a good listener. If you haven't seen the film already, I highly advise that you do to truly understand what I'm gonna be talking about here. And of course, you just don't get the same reaction by just hearing someone summarize the plot. At face value, it looks like a very silly movie. Putting deep messaging into an absurdist film can make it a little hard for someone to stick around and really open their mind to it. I get it, but I'm here to tell you what's really special about this film if you really do refuse to see past the fart jokes. So let's talk about Hank to start with. A little backstory on Hank, our protagonist. He purposely went out to sea as an attempt to exclude himself from society. He unfortunately got himself lost and washed up on a little island we open up on. We learn that his relationship with his dad is bare, their only form of communication being through automated birthday e-cards. His mum passed away when he was a kid, and he has no friends at all. He was bullied all his life, and his dad was a shit bloke who wouldn't stand for weakness and being different. He is also ableist, often calling his son the R word. You know which one that is. His relationship with Sarah is found out to be non-existent, and we discover that he is a little bit of an incel. He doesn't hate women though. At least I don't think so. He's just the lonely one who would watch her Instagram a bunch. We discovered that it's a little bit deeper than that. Through discussions with Manny, Hank recalls how happy Sarah looks. He wants to be that happy and feels a little bit of jealousy, dare I say. She is the embodiment of everything he's wanted in life, but unfortunately, he feels that he could never achieve it. So he sits alone on the bus and doesn't say a word. He knows that Sarah is married, of course. It's all over her Instagram, but it doesn't stop one from dreaming of a life together. This movie touches on self-hatred a lot. That's why Hank is so relatable, because who hasn't cringed at themselves? But Hank truly hates himself, an unhealthy amount of hate. And honestly, when you get to this amount of self-loathing, then at this point, no one can possibly hate you more than you hate yourself. Trust me, I've been there. It's no secret that the film is about being alone and wanting love. It's obvious in the first minute of the film that Hank is alone, and even more so when he starts relying on a corpse. But we could also blame general isolation and starvation for that too. But having Manny around genuinely makes him happy to be alive. I think the Daniels did an amazing job at encapsulating the topic of loneliness and keeping all feelings to yourself. It also gives a very important insight on toxic masculinity while doing so. Men aren't so lucky when it comes to telling people how they feel and finding people who are willing to hear them out. It's hugely uncomfortable for them, and generational toxic masculinity is to blame for it. And self-esteem, that's another thing I'll also dive into. Trash is the main thing that you see in this film. To anybody, trash is useless. Unless you raid trash cans for food and supplies, good on you, I won't judge you. I won't ever hold that against you. But in general, we throw things out that we no longer need and don't work anymore. To Hank, it's the key to survival, and it's more useful than he initially thinks. The film is, in a literal sense, littered with trash, from nifty survival contraptions all the way up to building recreations of whole scenes. It's all trashy, in a good way. Hank uses trash to teach Manny about life by telling him what they used to be for. Manny asks why the trash is out here, to which Hank replies, nobody wants it anymore, so they throw it away. Manny makes the grim comparison of likening himself to trash, because he is useless and dead. Nobody wants him anymore. Which is f***ing sad, and it lingers with him throughout the whole film. So trash is also a feeling, a mindset here, a metaphor for when no one wants you, which is exactly how Hank feels. So there have been a couple of theories floating around forums surrounding Manny and how he came to be. I'm not so interested in the logistics of how he exists physically, whether he's actually dead or not, or if it's all in Hank's head. I don't think the film bothers to give context to that, and I think that's intentional, for sure. What is really important is the relationship between Manny and Hank and who Manny is. I think the film has made it abundantly clear that Manny is Hank, in a way. The final bear attack scene actually fully proves it. To summarize, Manny and Hank are stuck in the trees after a second run-in with the bear. Manny is starting to overthink things as thoughts become other thoughts and begin to overwhelm him. Manny is becoming human. When he has these thoughts, Hank starts to struggle to hold on to the branch. They are sharing the same thoughts, and he keeps telling Manny to stop thinking about them. After Hank falls, he's incapacitated by the bear, and Manny gains the strength to move, and he begins to carry Hank. The roles basically switch. I would even go as far as calling Manny Hank's inner child. Therapy 101. When you appease your child self who has been neglected all these years, you end up becoming happy with yourself. Neglect the child self, you neglect your adult self. When Manny comes to Hank as a lifeless corpse, we are actually seeing Hank's inner self, dead, shriveled up, and completely useless. It's not until Hank starts to communicate with Manny that he starts waking up. He knows nothing about life, so Hank is put in a position to teach him, and this all makes Manny very excited. Hank's teaching of life is all through the eyes of himself, so Manny can't help but envy him. Hank, the man who claims he has no life and that life is meaningless. It's really telling of the whole ideology when your child self sees you now. If they do, they would envy you. They have not yet experienced the complications of life, just like Manny hasn't. Manny grows from a naive childlike state of thinking to a cynical state when he finds out how unfair the world is.
Thoughts like, if my best friend keeps his farts from me, what else is he hiding from me? And why does that thought make me feel so alone?
Throughout the film, Hank is forced to use his imagination to set the scene of what everyday life looks like. He builds a bus, a car, a movie theater, and even a whole house party. It's all things Hank dreams of. Even something as mundane as a bus ride excites Manny, and in turn, excites Hank too. It all really shows that when you take the time to see things through fresh eyes, you start to notice how interesting your life actually is.
So this is it. This is the life I've forgotten. Oh, when I get back home, I'm gonna ride the bus every day.
Manny, this is just the beginning.
So Hank is also on a journey to reconnect with himself. You need to find comfort with yourself to get through life, or you might as well be completely alone. That's like the subplot. In the river crossing scene, they are noticeably tethered to each other by a cloth rope, and Manny falls, which takes Hank down with him. In that moment is where we see Hank fully embrace himself. Manny is falling into the deep dark waters, but Hank won't allow that. He goes after him, but this mission could kill him, as he would be too far from the surface to come back. Hank is compelled to kiss him, fully embracing him, but as he does, Manny reveals another power, which is being an oxygen tank, which helps Hank survive the depths. And just to add the cherry on top, he unplugs the cork from Manny's butthole, the cork that he inserted so he could stop farting, because it was so disgusting and embarrassing. He did this so they could fart their way up to the surface. Another symbol of embracing oneself, especially considering that farts in this film are a symbol of freedom and something that we are forced to hide for no good reason. What we are seeing here is a man coming to terms with himself. All comments made by Hank about himself have been self-deprecating and harsh, and I think we all know that feeling. So why on earth would we even want to be alone with ourselves if we outright hate ourselves? This film is teaching us that we need to be okay with ourselves, because when or if you end up in a situation like Hank's, God forbid, being lost and alone in the woods, you have absolutely no one but yourself to turn to. Of course, it's fortunately not always like that for many people. They are lucky to have someone around them. But even then, we must get comfortable with ourselves, since our inner self is always there. So all in all, it's safe to say that as a society, we have kind of set up too many standards for ourselves. To go to parties, to erase wrinkles, to not fart around others. This film is saying, like a fart, don't hold it in, let it out.